Welcome to the Edufaith Essentials Educational Podcast. Edufaith Essentials is an educational podcast that provides essential information and tips about education, leadership, and topics about diverse learners. Diverse learners include students with individual education plans, services under the Individuals with Disability Education Act, Section 504 services, English speakers of other languages, and interventions. Edufaith Essentials' mission is to bring positive awareness to promote equity and inclusion in education by sharing topics about non-traditional learners. Edufaith Essentials' goal is to restore faith in education one student at a time by empowering listeners with knowledge. We all know that knowledge is power, so let's be powerful. Edufaith, EDU, education, and faith, trusting or believing in one's ability. Edufaith would love for you to join our family, so subscribe at www.edufaithconsulting.com and make sure you subscribe to the Edufaith Essentials YouTube page. I'm your host, Dr. Nakia. Thank you for joining me today. As always, sending you good vibes, love, peace, and happiness. Redesigning education, sustainability, STEM, and community power. Let's dive in with our Edufaith Inspirational Story. Sometimes the greatest impact begins with a single moment of awareness and the decision to take action. In 2002, Matthew Paneitz visited San Juan, Camalaca, Guatemala as a Peace Corps volunteer, where he witnessed extreme poverty that others would simply walk away from. Instead of leaving with just an experience, he returned with a sense of purpose. In 2004, he founded Long Way Home, a nonprofit organization based on the belief that communities deserve sustainable and innovative solutions rather than temporary fixes. What makes the story powerful is not only the vision behind it, but the transformation that Matthew has evolved. Over nearly 2 decades, Matthew and his team have converted 550 tons of waste, including 35,000 used tires, into something extraordinary, the Hero School, a green-built campus designed to serve students and families within the community. What was once considered a waste has now become a foundation of learning, opportunity, and hope. This story reminds us that true leadership is not about waiting for the perfect conditions. It's about seeking possibilities where others see problems. Whether in education, advocacy, or community, let's all work together like Matthew and have the ability to take what's broken and build something meaningful. Thank you, Matthew, for your wonderful vision and the transformation to support others in education. He's actually our guest for our Essential Knowledge segment, so you'll hear more about Matthew and his story and the Hero School on the Edufaith Essentials Knowledge section of today's podcast. Now let's dive into our dates to remember for the month of April. April showers bring May flowers. The monthly observances for April include Poetry Month, Month of Military Child, Arab American Heritage Month, National School Library Month, Autism Acceptance Month, Financial Literacy Month, Counseling Awareness Month, Math and Statistics Awareness Month, National Volunteer Appreciation Month, Child Abuse Prevention Month, Multi-Learner Advocacy Month, National Occupational Therapy Month, Oral, Head, and Neck Cancer Awareness Month, Parkinson's Awareness Month, and National Donate Life Month. As we shift into our dates, April 1st is April Fool's Day and Paraprofessional Appreciation Day. Make sure that you celebrate your wonderful parapros in your schools. They do a lot to support our students and our teachers. April 1st, Passover begins. April 2nd is World Autism Awareness Day. April 4th is National School Librarian Day. April 4th through the 11th is National Robotics Week. April 5th is Easter. Happy Easter. Happy Resurrection Day. Jesus lives. April 6th to the 10th, National Assistant Principals Week. Celebrate your assistant principals and thank them for all that they do to help hold down the school and support the administrators, students, and teachers. April 7th is World Health Day globally. April 9th, Passover ends. April 10th is National Youth HIV and Awareness Day in the United States. April 11th is Parkinson's Disease International Awareness Day globally. April 13th is Sarcoidosis Awareness Day globally. April 15th is Purple Up Day. April 17th is World Hemophilia Day. April 19th through the 25th is National Library Week. April 20th through the 24th is After School Professionals Appreciation Week. April 20th through the 24th is National Public School Volunteer Week. April 20th through the 26th is National MS, Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week in the United Kingdom. April 22nd is Earth Day. Happy Earth Day. April 22nd is also Administrative Professionals Day. Make sure that you buy your secretaries, your staff, your admin, buy them a special treat because they help hold the bosses down. So happy Administrative Professionals Day. April 24th is Arbor Day. April 25th is World Malaria Day globally. April 28th is National School Bus Driver Appreciation Day. Let's celebrate our school bus drivers. They work hard. They keep our students safe and they transport them to school. Wishing you a wonderful day on April 28th, National School Bus Drivers. April 28th is also National British Sign Language Day in the United Kingdom. April 28th is World Day for Safety and Health at Work globally. And we wrap up April with April 29th, World Wish Day, which is globally. Make a wish. We hope it comes true. That is it for our dates to remember for the month of April. Happy Passover. Happy Resurrection Day. Happy World Autism Awareness Day. And let's remember to honor those bus drivers, appreciation of our national assistant principals, after school professionals, administrative professionals. Let's all celebrate them throughout the month of April. And that is it for our inclusive dates to remember. Now let's dive into our essential news. For the month of April, essential news is following up for all the stories from March. And let's start with story one. Story one is the Education Department may offload special education soon, and advocates warn about it. This is a story I've repeated quite a bit. It came from Disability Scoop, and it was published March 26, 2026. Discussions are ongoing among federal officials about structuring oversight of special education under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It's crucial to maintain strong civil rights protections and accountability. Advocates emphasize, and they continue to emphasize, the importance of the Department of Education's specialized expertise for consistent implementation of program and services. Changes should prioritize equity and compliance to ensure families have seamless access to services. This proposal encourages us to enhance special education while protecting the interests of those that serve. The advocates are really concerned about the oversight and the monitoring of oversight if we shift services. And that came from Disability Scoop, that story. Story two is also from the Disability Scoop. It's March 2026. And special education is in limbo as Education Department sheds responsibilities. This ties in with story one. The key points of this story is special education programs, once again, are facing those uncertainties with shifts about who's going to be responsible for IDEA implementation and oversight. And as the federal roles shift, state and district leaders are left with unclear guidance on expectations for monitoring, including the state departments. This uncertainty can impact timeline for services, monitoring compliance, and program implementations. Educators may face struggles to align practices without that consistent direction, as well as families may also face confusion when seeking support or resolution for services. This moment highlights the importance of strong leadership to maintain stability despite federal shifts and changes and maintain the equity and compliance of special education. Story 3 also comes from Disability Scoop from March 2026, and is titled Special Education Enrollment Tops 8 Million Nationwide. This story came from Disability Scoop and is discussing the new numbers as special education and students who require special education services have surpassed 8 million, highlighting a growth in the need for support in schools. As students are identified as needing assistance, schools must hire additional staff, offer better training, and increase resources. It's essential for schools to implement proactive services to address issues early rather than waiting until problems escalate. This trend emphasizes the need for planning and investment in special education to ensure all 8 million students receive services. And story 1, 2, and 3 all tie into special education, the shift of reassignment, and how this is going to impact 8 million students as our numbers continue to grow. So we want to make sure that we continue to stay aware of what's going on with the news and monitor the shift in roles in which guidance that special education services are going to fall under in the future. Story 4, advocates warn against IDEA transfers from K through 12 died. Advocates, including leaders from the Council of Exceptional Children, are concerned that moving programs under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act to different agencies could weaken civil rights protections and accountability. This aligns with stories 1, 2, and 3. They emphasize that IDEA is an education law aimed at ensuring proper education for students with disabilities. Dividing oversight might distract from improving educational access and outcomes and can lead to fragmented services. National organizations are urging policies to maintain strong oversight to protect the integrity of special education systems. Story 5, OCR enforcement. And this is a story about the Office of Civil Rights. They found significant problems in D.C. public schools affecting students with disabilities. Their investigation revealed that many students face ongoing challenges due to these issues. As a result, the schools must change their policies and management practices. This situation highlights the need for, once again, story 1, 2, 3, and 4 of consistent federal oversight to protect student rights and ensure schools fulfill their responsibilities and a fair education and a free and appropriate education to all students. Story 6 is titled Education Took Action Against CEC's 2026 Convention and Expo. Members and leaders from the Council of Exceptional Children came together to tackle key issues in education. They focused on protecting student rights under the Individual Disabilities Education Act, addressing no staff shortages, and proper inclusive practices. The convention allowed educators to share ideas and overcome staffing challenges and ensuring IDEA is effectively implemented. Leaders emphasized the importance of creating a lasting, diverse learner environment, and this collaboration shows how professional communities can drive positive changes in education. I myself am a member of the Council for Exceptional Children, and I did go to the conference this year, 2026. And the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to give you a full recap on the 2026 CEC conference, so stay tuned. Story 7, PBS News, Disability Reframed Series, Policy and Access Impact. This story comes from PBS News. They're sharing important stories about how decisions are made by the federal government, especially about healthcare and education and how it affects people with disabilities. I spoke on this story a little bit last month, and there's still some ongoing coverage about this. These stories shows that funding choices don't just influence schools, they also have a big impact on healthcare and community services. For families and individuals with disabilities, everything is connected. They often depend on different systems like education and healthcare to get support to help in daily life. When one of these systems change, it can create challenges for others. This highlights why it's crucial for different policy areas to work together smoothly. And our final story, OCR enforcement expands to restraint, seclusion, and FAPE violations. OCR secured a resolution agreement addressing improper use of restraint and seclusion and failures to provide a free and appropriate public education. Recent investigations reveal that some schools did not conduct necessary meetings for students with special needs, known as IEP meetings, and overlooked how to use physical restraints affected among these students. Additionally, some students missed out on important services and support because they were not given the help they needed after missing classes. The Office of Civil Rights stressed that schools must keep an eye on their practices of restraint and seclusion to make sure that they are following the rules federally related to education and student support. These findings highlight the importance of ensuring safety for all students, keeping accurate records, and delivering the services effectively. And that is it for Essential News. That was quite a bit of news. March is a critical time in special education, and there are a lot of stories. So we want to make sure that we're staying abreast of everything, watching the news, keeping up with these sites so we can understand what's going on with special education in our country. Now it's time for Essential Knowledge. For this month's Essential Knowledge segment, we are honored to be joined by Matthew Paneitz. I mentioned him on the Edufaith Inspirational Story, and he's an educator, social entrepreneur, and founder of Long Way Home. Matthew's journey began in 2002 when he served as a Peace Corps volunteer in San Juan, Camalapa, Guatemala, where he witnessed firsthand the challenges of extreme poverty and limited access to education. What started as a moment of awareness had become his lifelong commitment. In 2004, Matthew founded Long Way Home, a nonprofit organization dedicated and providing sustainable education and community development solutions. Through innovative design and environmental stewardship, Matthew and his team transformed more than 550 tons of waste, including 35,000 used tires, into the Hero School, a green-built campus that now serves as a model for sustainability and access to education. His work bridges education, environmental responsibility, and community empowerment in powerful and lasting ways. Today, Matthew continues to lead with vision and purpose, showing us what it means to turn challenges into opportunities and ideas into action. And this conversation will explore leadership, sustainability, and how educators and leaders can create meaningful change in their own community. Without further ado, I want to welcome Mr. Matthew Paneitz to the Edufaith Essentials Podcast. Thank you, Matt, for being on the Edufaith Essentials Podcast. I am so glad to have you. How are you doing today?
Great, thanks.
Awesome. All right, what we'll do is I want to just open the door and talk about what you do. I think it's phenomenal what you do. And yeah, let's start with the origin and the vision for what you do. First off, give us the name of everything and just give us a brief intro.
Yes, I am the executive director of Long Way Home. And Long Way Home is a 501c3 that operates primarily in Guatemala. And we've been going since 2005. I got the determination letter from the IRS in 2004, actually. So yeah, we're coming into turning the corner on 20 years.
Awesome. Now tell me, what inspired the founding of Long Way Home?
Sure. I was in the Peace Corps in 2002 and 2003, and that changed my entire life, right? I was a paramedic before I went to the Peace Corps, and so I had a solid job, and I was living in Southwest Virginia, living a pretty solid, stable, regular old life. And then I decided to change everything up. I joined the Peace Corps, saw extreme poverty for the first time in my life. I'd never, ever seen anything like what I saw. And it hit me very hard. And that changed my entire trajectory. And so I decided I was going to start a nonprofit organization, and I was going to do something about all of the suffering that comes along with people living in extreme poverty.
Wow, that's awesome. And that's very inspirational. So the question I want to ask is, how did the local community shape the school's mission and design? And let's talk a little bit about the school.
Yeah. So the local community, so whenever I was there as a Peace Corps volunteer, you are assigned a counterpart agency. The Peace Corps gives you some locals to work with. And what those locals said was, hey, here's 5 acres of lands. We were hoping to build a park here. We own the land, but we never got around to building the park. So if you would like to use the land during your Peace Corps time, go for it. And so I started youth soccer leagues, because initially I was like, I'm going to create some entertainment for the youth, because they didn't have any like after school programs at all, right? There was no youth league soccer or baseball or volleyball or anything like that. So that's what I was doing while I was in the Peace Corps. And everybody loved it, right? Everybody loves to play ball. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Parents came and the kids came, and I got to know everybody, and we used the park. And then after my Peace Corps service, I had this feeling that I wanted to go back. I tried to get a normal job, go into school. I re-enrolled in college, and it didn't feel right. And so I decided I was going to go back to Guatemala, sold all of my belongings, raffled my sports car, and so that we would have a little bit of money to start, and went back and built that city park, right? And we didn't like live in a tourist town and then visit the park. Occasionally, we lived in a house that had no electricity, that had no water. So we were living sort of the same poverty as the people around us. Mm-hmm. And we were living in the midst of small farmers, right? People are mostly growing maize, and they're the kindest people that you can imagine, right? And our neighbors became our friends and family in a lot of ways. And we also got to see some of the struggles in their lives. And so, yeah, we built the park. And while we were building the park, we saw that people needed more than recreation. And that's what inspired the school.
Wow. So your Peace Corps, let's back up. So you were in the Peace Corps, you went to Guatemala, you were exposed to the culture and the needs. And from there, you restructured your life. sold everything, came back, built a park, and then a school.
That's right. That's right.
That is
Yeah.
that is awesome. I just want to make sure that I capture all of that. And now, how long has the school and the park? How long have they been open, and are they thriving? I'm sure they are.
Yeah, the park's going great. Still being used. We finished the park in 2009 or 2010-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And, they overlapped a little bit. So we started the school in 2000 and at the very beginning of 2009. And currently we have 178 pre-K through high school students attending our school that we now call Hero School.
Yeah, real school, love that. Okay, so now tell me about the resources. So, like, when you built the schools in the park, how? Like, what resources? What did you use, and what was the infrastructure?
Yeah, like Guatemala is not the kind of place where if you want to build something that you go to the Home Depot and order everything, you really have to piece it together. And so you rely on the local community for the entire process, right? If you want a load of sand so that you can make concrete, you're not asking Home Depot to get it. You're asking one of your neighbors to tell you who delivered sand. And that sand comes directly out of a river, right?
Mm.
And same thing with gravel. Everything has to be acquired. There are some small hardware stores and they help you do this, but there's not like one big one. You have to like go, okay, what does this hardware store have? And what does this one have? And then we also saw that there was a whole bunch of trash on the ground and no real system for managing it. And so we decided we were going to integrate that trash into all of our construction. And that's really where everything changed for us in the sense of whenever I asked the co-founder, I was like, hey, I want to build a school. Do you want to build a school with me? And he goes, absolutely. And then he asked me, he says, have you ever heard of building out of trash? It's like, no, of course not. I've never heard of building anything out of trash. And he shows me this book, and we decided to build a home that was like kind of a test run for us before we decided to build an entire school campus out of trash. And the pilot project went really well. What we saw was when you build with tires, that the building is stable because Guatemala is a real earthquake prone type region, that it's warm inside because we're at 7,000 feet in the mountains. So it's kind of cold at night and then it stays cool on the inside. The people like it, that it helps, right? You're fixing a lot of things at one time when you decide
Wow.
you're going to create jobs, because instead of using a lot of conventional materials, you can use non-conventional materials and then pay people to help you. So we were creating jobs, cleaning up the environment, experimenting with new types of infrastructure that people need in the region. And yeah, we were off to the races.
So, trash into treasures, pretty much building a school, trash into treasures.
That's it. That's it. And yeah, we also found it really fun. For some reason, whenever you're building a house out of tires, that includes swinging a sledgehammer, because you take the dirt, you lay the tire flat, you put the dirt inside of the tire, and then you take a sledgehammer and you use that sledgehammer to beat the dirt into the tires, right? And
Wow.
for some reason, we found that to be really fun. Swinging a sledgehammer for 8, 9 hours a day, we found it entertaining.
Wow, I love it. So, like, what lessons have you learned about dignity, ownership, and impact through the project?
Well, I think the entire thing has been one lesson. There have been tens of thousands of lessons. One of them is that failure does not necessarily mean you should stop because
Yeah.
we put that first house that we built, we packed the tires too much, and that made the walls unstable. So we had to tear all of that work down and then start over from scratch.
Oh, wow.
And that because we're using building materials that were somewhat unfamiliar to us, we had to do that a bunch of times. And we also, like, we built this campus and we hired local people to help us who were also
Mm-hmm.
masons and builders and had a lot of experience turning somewhat scavenged materials into homes and infrastructure. And so we learned, rely on what the locals understand and what the locals have done. And then we also figured that that the education system, the way it was set up, could use a little help too, because they're doing somewhat of a rote memorization type where the teacher stands there and the kids have to memorize information and then take a test. Well, we didn't want to build a whole school campus and then provide an education that was going to be like that. So we decided that another lesson, that while we were learning the lessons of green building while building the campus, that we could integrate all of that into the education system. And so that was a big lesson learned, and I'm still working on that one.
Yeah, so tell me about the school and the integration of the lessons. And, when you think about sustainability, STEM, trash, and all those things, what do you capture within the school? How does this all tie together, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so school can be considered kind of boring sometimes. I'm not sure if you've ever heard anybody say that. But I think I was personally a little bored while I was going to school. And so during my master's degree, what I was investigating was how to make school not so boring. And then I looked back through all these philosophers over the years, and I couldn't see anything in the current school system that looked like what those philosophers said. Those philosophers were saying engage people, have them solve community problems in the classroom. And that was not what I saw in public education at that time. And so what I mean by like integrating the lessons learned from green building into the curriculum. So now, like in the 7th grade, we decided that we were going to solve a community problem. That community problem in San Juan, Comalapa, at 7,000 feet in the mountains, is upper respiratory infection. There's a lot of families cooking over open flames indoors, and it's cold. Right. And so that was the number one reason that people were going to the health clinic. So what we decided to do in the 7th grade was shift the entire, leverage all the subject matter to address that issue. So basically, like in math class, we no longer do abstract math. We do math that helps us design a ventilated stove. In art class, we model the stove. In theater class, we do a dramatization about the stove, about actually implementing it. And so, our students learn the theoretical part while they're in class. And then we go out into the community, and our 7th graders go and build stoves for families. And that's also partially why we call it Hero School, right? Because our students are doing the work that potentially the government should be doing, really, or somebody else. And we've decided to use subject matter to do that. So in the 8th grade, we do a water tank because water is a major societal issue. In the 9th grade, we do compost latrines because sanitation's an issue. Sanitation as far as like people having solid, decent bathrooms. In the 10th grade, we do retaining wall erosion's an issue. In the 11th grade, we do homes or school buildings, because these are all issues that you could, if you do a little bit of investigation, which our students do in social studies class, you find out that we actually, through subject matter, can solve those problems.
Wow. So it sounds like you have something for each grade level. So whatever's going on in the community is being infused into the classroom, and you're leveraging education and hands-on learning to problem solve within the community. Am I correct?
That is right. And that is all of a sudden makes school not so boring, because you can imagine the effect that has on the students, right? Because they're like, wow, I am a valuable member of my community investigating topics that matter to my community. And now I matter in my community.
I love that. And now they're using trash are they transforming and using the trash to solve problems in the community?
Right. That's another one. Yeah, whenever we build infrastructure, stoves, retaining walls, we're using the plastic that we find on the ground and integrating that into whatever infrastructure project that we're doing.
Wow, I love that. And then my next question, like when you talk about the upper grades, so how do the lower grades, how do they get involved? What kind of projects do the babies do?
Yeah, it's not so easy to ask a kindergartner to build a ventilated stove. So everything from like grade level to grade level, we've done elevated levels of complexity within the project. So the pre-K and the first graders are doing compost. They're making soil, right?
Mhm.
Then the second and third graders, they're doing reforestation because deforestation is a huge issue. It's cold there. People need to burn firewood to stay warm.
Mhm.
There's not central heating and air conditioning. And yeah, so really the lower grades are a little bit more focused on the essentials, soil and reforestation. And but they also get involved somewhat in some of the higher level grade projects because they're excited to be involved.
So you building upon it. So you start the students young, but then they build upon. So as they accelerate in each grade level, they're learning more and more things and more strategies for using trash and the resources of the community to pour back into the community.
That's right. It's that like sort of Karate Kid approach. They like
Mhm.
start small. They don't even know how involved they really are. And they're taking all these little tiny steps to build up their resume so that by the time that they've finished, they have done all of this development work. And with any luck, they would be the people who would get involved in politics.
I love it. And then, like, what happens usually when students graduate?
Well, as you probably can imagine, there's not a whole lot of jobs in sustainable development, right?
Mhm.
Guatemala is not has not gotten there exactly.
Mhm.
And so they become nurses or lawyers or
Mhm.
police people. A lot of them stay and become farmers and they're merchants. They're the people that mix into society. And what we've seen is as they mix in, they do it more conscientiously.
Okay, I love that. So, how does or why is sustainability a powerful entry point for STEM, resilience, and just that community?
Yeah, like there's a lot of what we've seen. STEM is there's a lot of value to the STEM process.
Mhm.
And all we've tried to do with the STEM process is make it more realistic and give it a
Mhm.
more hands on approach through our student projects because we need our students to innovate. We need them to do the science, technology, engineering to advance their community and society into a direction where things can be sustained. And so, yeah, our students use that specific paradigm to innovate and think carefully about how the future looks in their community.
So, talk me through the process of transforming trash into sustainable materials. So, give me the process.
Yeah,
How do you start?
yeah, sure. Well, you start off collecting, right?
Mhm.
Because it's on the ground.
Okay.
And so, whenever we decide that we're going to do a building, we will say to our students, hey, we need 5,000 plastic bottles filled with trash, and we need them within 2 months. And then the students, they will go, okay, well, I'll work with what's in my area, in my ability, and they will rally their families. And then every week for those 2 months, they'll bring in 10 plastic bottles filled with trash. If they see a tire, they'll bring it in to the school. And then we sort of offset some of the tuition based on the fact that they're helping us with the building materials. And then if we're going to build, let's say, a classroom, sometimes we take those plastic bottles that are filled with rubbish and we'll make cob, which is adobe. You mix all that cob and adobe, you lay it flat, unless you're sure if you've seen like how people lay mortar, but it
Mhm.
lays sort of in the same way. And then you space the bottles out on top of that bit of cob. And then you put more cob on top, and then more bottles, and then more cob. And then you fill the spaces between the columns on a building, and then you will have gotten rid of 5,000 plastic bottles filled with trash. And each bottle weighs a pound, so we're
Mhm.
talking 5,000 pounds of trash completely removed from the waste system. And then there's a variety of ways to do this because we also will take plastic is everywhere. That's really kind of the
Mhm.
main thing. And
Mhm.
so you can take loose plastic and put it into a little compression machine and then make cinder block type structures out of those. and put those plastic blocks in between the columns. You can lay tires flat. You don't even need columns at that point because the
Mm-hmm.
tires are strong enough to absorb the weight of the roof, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we put all of this on lwhomegreen.org because we also documented the entire process for what you might do to be able to use rubbish and displace some of the conventional materials when you're dealing with infrastructure.
That's a very interesting process. And I do have the link on the visual for those who are watching the YouTube page. And then I also have the link on the Edufaith Essentials YouTube page as well for you to go and see the entire process. Matt, let's slide into this is an inclusive podcast. So I always want to ask questions about students with disabilities, inclusion, and special needs. How does your school currently support students with disabilities in this process?
Well, everybody's invited to participate in this process, and we meet people where they are, right? And so when they come to our classroom, because we're also dealing with low income students, right? In our town, there are only so many positions in the public schools available, and there's more kids than there are positions in the public schools. So a lot of what we get is the overflow from the public schools. And most of our students are very low income students. And so as people apply and they become part of our school, we meet them where they are. We do socioeconomic studies. We understand what their struggles are in their lives. And then we go a little bit beyond what the average school might do. And if we find out that a family does not have a stove or a water tank or a bathroom, we build it for them so that that student can do better in school. Because a lot of the times when students are not performing well in school, it's because they're trying to spend their lives surviving at all whatsoever. So if one of our students has a disability, we go and build a ramp at that person's home. We make it easier for that person to get water. We make life easier for people to be able to study.
I love that. And then the next question is what does inclusive design look like in your school? Because you said there is a lot of poverty and things like that. So how does it look in the school?
Yeah, it is kind of surprising that it looks like a bunch of people having a really good time. Because when you're solving societal problems and you are doing it as a group, right? Think of it more as like our second grade is more like a cohort, right? They go in, they're assigned to deal with a problem, they work on that problem together, they think together, they become super conscientious about what's going on with them and the people around them. And then all of a sudden education becomes fun, right? Because they care a lot about what's going on with the student sitting next to them. Because that's the way we frame things, that everybody matters, that everybody's condition matters, their living condition matters. And we're not in this like whoever graduates gets the best job is not really our approach. That's not what we consider success. Success to us looks like everybody rising up together at the exact same time to the best of our ability. It does not always work out like that, but we have framed it that way, so that makes it easier for us to work that into the entire process.
I love that. And so just how do your teachers, how are they involved and what is their role in the school?
Yeah, our teachers were trained by the Ministry of Education in the way that the Ministry of Education trains teachers. They went and got formal training. Some of them went to the university, some of them didn't. And so they are sort of trained in that rote memorization approach. And whenever I said we're going to, do all of this completely differently, there was some resistance, of course. They were not like, okay, we want to do I'll take all of our training and then do it all differently. That did not go perfectly smoothly. But overall, they care and they're interested and they know there's problems and they know they can do better. But they don't exactly know how, right? Because if you're not educated on, let's say, lesson plan development in the university, then you don't know how, right? and like the lesson plans or the way that the education system is set up, that there's a lot of space for mobility, that the Ministry of Education actually expects for the teachers to come up with their own approach. If the learning objective is get the students to understand that 2 + 2 = 4, the cool thing about the opportunity that we have is that we get to decide how to get there. And what we've basically decided is 2 stoves plus 2 stoves equals 4 stoves. And then so we can contextualize. So the teachers, they're the cornerstone of the entire thing. They're the ones delivering all the information, and us as administrators and kind of dealing with strategy, we work directly with the teachers and go, okay, here's another way to think of this. Here's another way to work on this. And it's not like they have endless time, right? Teachers are grading papers and they don't have, whenever I started this school, I pictured teachers at night coming up with all kinds of curriculum ideas, researching at night. Okay, that's not a reality. That's not, teachers do not stay up all night, every night, researching new approaches to education. Now that I've been doing this for quite some time, I understand why, because it's a lot of work trying to like maintain. And so, yeah, we're building it up together.
So you do the traditional paper and pencil because you said the teachers were trained in that. But then you also have that whole STEM hands-on community approach as well. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, because they can go hand in hand. And like initially, whenever I was trying to figure out the education model that would work in our school, I thought that I would copy and paste some other model that somebody else had. Like we would do Montessori or something along those lines. And it didn't exactly fit with what the circumstances were in our town. So like whenever the ministry leaves us very open-ended learning objectives, it means that, like I said, we can decide how to get there. So what the teachers need is a little bit of help in the research to help them decide on how to get there. Like what is the new best way to go about doing this? And so we have a team of people that is working with them to help them figure that out, and they appreciate it.
I love it. I just had to ask about the teachers because I'm trying to envision this whole thing.
Yeah, I know.
Right, so,
that's a good question.
Yeah, because you're right. Teachers, we have a heart, but we're like, oh, this looks different. I don't know about this one. So you have to deal with the hesitancy of the traditional as you look into non-traditional ways to leverage what you're doing.
And in Guatemala, maybe like a lot of other places, it's not like there's a ton of examples either. A lot of people have a lot of curriculum. But like if we'd taken some Montessori type curriculum, then we wouldn't have been able to scale it. We wouldn't have been able to use it somewhere else. And we're trying to work within the national education standards. So whatever breakthroughs that we have, we can share it with other teachers who are also teaching public education, right? Our school is a private school, so we have a little bit of flexibility, but we're using the public school national education standards. So anything that we do, we're trying to make it available to the other teachers in our area specifically, but potentially throughout the country.
All right. I love that. And then we talked about teachers. Let's switch to parents. How do you leverage parent input as far as working through the school? So you have your teachers buy-in and teachers working. So how do parents align with your school?
Well, our school needs the help of the parents. We rely on them to help us. Like, we don't have a huge budget to pay for everything right up front. So, like, whenever we go out into the community and do our student projects, the parents join us in that because our students are doing masonry and carpentry, and a lot of the parents understand masonry and carpentry. So as we send out a group of 5 students to go into a family's house and figure out how to build that stove, the parents jump into that space with them and they help them do that. It's also our parents whenever if we're going to do some big project, some big construction project at our school, we call on the parents and then they jump into the mix with us and make it cheaper, make it easier. They have a lot of skills that we can leverage. They also have a lot of contacts in the community. So if we say, hey, everybody, we need something, we put out a memo and the parents respond and go, okay, well, I know the person that can help with this. Like, they're an essential part of our entire environment. Like, we need them to help all of this to work.
Perfect. I love that. And my next question is, how can families teach sustainability and global responsibility at home in general? So this is not really tied to your school. This is for my parents that's listening and listening to your story and listening to how you transformed in the vision. How can parents across the board teach sustainability and global responsibility in their communities, in their homes, etc.?
Yeah, I suppose the first stage, the first step in all this is to understand what's going on, right? And at least whenever I think about global sustainability, I think of all of our brothers and sisters across the world sustaining. And to me, sustaining means living. And so becoming aware that there are a lot of people that are living in some of the other countries around us that are having a really hard time, and understanding that they're having a really hard time, and that our sustainability is completely connected to their sustainability, and we need to make sure that they are sustained as well. Like, that is a big first step, is understanding that there's a lot of people out there that are having a really hard time, and that we're part of the same world. So if I was a teacher in some other part of the world, I would make sure that my students understand that there's a lot of other people out there that need a lot of help.
That's a great idea. And it's great to push in community because the school is the community. So it's just very important that you seek those opportunities and seize them to have that responsibility at home because school and community go hand in hand. So
that's right. And I've connected with a lot of teachers in the United States and all over the world. And because the average third grader cannot fly to Guatemala and build a stove for a family, what they do is they integrate these opportunities to work on their communities into their lesson plans and into their curriculum. And that at least gets the whole process started of realizing that we're all connected, right? And then that gets students, their innovation engines really running, and then that potentially puts them into the position, at least as they're going through school, that helps them realize that they're part of this whole thing. They're part of the solution.
I love it. So using your experience and your story in the Hero School as a teachable experience for parents in the community back in the U.S. and internationally. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. And then what small actions make a big impact for children? What do you think about that?
Well, our students, by the fact that they were taking little pieces of plastic and they were putting them in the bottles, and then we were using those bottles to build infrastructure for other families, I think that entire process had a really deep impact on them, because they saw that if they're going to eat a little piece of candy, instead of throwing it into the trash can, that they were going to have to manage every single thing that they touched, right? And so I think it made them think twice about eating so much food that was wrapped in plastic, because then they were going to have to like deal with that plastic. Because I think whenever you use a trash can, you think that everything kind of goes away. But whenever you manage each and every individual piece of trash that you use, you all of a sudden start becoming more connected to the process of getting rid of that and doing it responsibly, because there's people coming after us and they're going to want to live in a planet that is not so contaminated. And so, yeah, like taking every opportunity to point out that we are part of, that we're going to leave this planet for the next people that are coming in everything that we consume. I would point it out. I would make us responsible.
I like that. Are you thinking about bringing this to the U.S.? We need it.
Sure, I've got to prove the concept first, right? That's part of what is happening as we build up this education model in Guatemala. I'm going to try to show some success with it, make adaptations along the way, and then talk to teachers in the US and go, okay, here's what we've learned over the course of our 25 years of doing research. How can we apply this here? Because, I clearly think that we're all connected and that the concepts can shift, right, from Guatemala to the US. Like, at least the concept of that we all need to work on saving the planet together.
Yeah, and this every little bit matters. Just what you said, the plastic, for instance. A student knows this what plastic, and I know that's a problem in the US as well. Recycling, being green and sustainable resources and utilizing and reutilizing sustainable resources. I think that's a really good mantra and message that you have going on that is really needed in the US as we think about plastic bottles and just trash and how we can reuse those things and transform them into something that's meaningful.
Yeah, because those are the people, those first, second, third, fourth graders they're going to start businesses at some point.
Correct.
And we're going to rely on them to, as that business produces some type of waste, we're going to rely on the fact that they got an education that will potentially tell them that don't throw everything away and be super considerate about where your waste is going. Those lessons are being settled into them now in their early years of education.
Yeah, so we need that here in the US. That's my ass. All right, so let's shift to educators and school leaders. Where should educators start integrating sustainability and equity? So I know you talked about how your teachers have done it, but how, if a teacher in the US or a teacher listening, like where should they start as far as integrating sustainability and equity in their classrooms?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like preschool is a good start, right? Because we're talking about habits and people start to produce habits. And then those habits can send you in a lot of directions. And so at our school, we recognize that those habits, our school is going to have an impact on those kids' habits, especially in their early years. So as we're talking about reading, what we're doing is reading about sustainability topics. When we're doing 2 + 2 = 4, we're doing 2 pieces of plastic plus 2 pieces of plastic equals 4 pieces of plastic. So all of this information can be integrated into the very basics of education without it necessarily seeming like such a burden. You don't want to make a preschooler feel entirely burdened by all of this. However, if it becomes their habit to care for the planet, and then that's what they've been doing their entire time, they're going to do it and not even think about the fact that they're doing it by the time they leave school. It will become second nature and they won't be able to not do it. So yeah, we have integrated these concepts into every single piece of subject matter all the way through the entire educational process for the point of creating habits.
It's going to be lifelong habits.
And they might as well.
Yeah. So leaders, teachers are sometimes resistant. Sometimes leaders are too. One is different. What leadership mindset is needed for such an initiative?
Our teachers are they're the leaders in this entire process. The administrators, they're all working together to make sure that whatever we do lands, right? It lands on the parents, it lands on the students. The strategies that we're putting together, it all needs to land on the people who are going to be receiving the information. And so, yeah, like successes are really nice as far as like when you're creating increments and people are within those increments learning, and that the lessons land into some type of a successful moment. So like whenever our students are doing science and math and they're building all of that into their subject matter, and they're learning in their subject matter the theoretical part. When we go out and we build the actual stove, that's a huge success moment, right? And so that's a quiet leadership, right? That's quiet leadership in the sense that the students are having a hugely successful moment. and the teachers are facilitating that successful moment for the students to feel really great about it.
Student-led leadership. Yeah. Student-led leadership is what I'm hearing. So leadership, but student-led leadership, which is really powerful, and students building, having autonomy and making decisions. We always talk about critical thinking skills and things like that. And that's like the best way to have them solve real world, having that lasting impact.
And having some successes along the way that make the entire process fun and interesting.
And then what leadership mindset is needed for lasting school transformation? So you talked about what the leaders do, you talked about the teachers and leaders, but as a leader, like what mindset would you recommend for a lasting transformation when you're looking at sustainability, STEM, and community-led infrastructure?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little story. We went out, we chose a small village on the outskirts of our town, and our students went from house to house using their social studies classes. They created a survey, and they went from house to house and figured out who does not have water tanks, who does not have stoves, who does not have the infrastructure that they need in order for people to live well. And then they went back into computer class and they mapped out the entire town. Then they came and we had a meeting with the parents and everybody, and we came up with a plan to implement all of the water tanks and stoves, retaining walls, compost latrines that this community needed. And that lasted about a week, right? And then at the end of all of this, the families of this village where we were working, they came together, and as our students were getting on the bus, the families were throwing rose petals at the feet of our students. Wow. Right? And so the idea is that our students are being recognized as people that matter in the community. And that has a really long-lasting effect. And I think that's where I think education should go, is becoming a training ground for people being recognized for the fact that they're basically doing research on how to improve society, how to improve the communities. That ties the families, the students, the teachers, everybody together into a space that benefits society for a long time.
It's a great story. Oh, I love that. So if we have a closing reflection, Matt, what gives you hope about the future of education and community change with the initiatives that you've led and where you are now?
Well, really, we're only now getting warmed up, right?
Yeah, I love it.
A lot of what we've done has been preparation for what's coming, right? And so soon we're going to be sharing our lesson plans with the other public school teachers. And rather than it being only a couple of hundred of us that are fighting poverty, we're going to soon be a couple of thousand people fighting poverty. And then that will potentially have an impact on politics. I think that the politicians will see that the seventh graders are out there fighting poverty, and they're going to feel like, okay, I probably should step up. And all of this is being done in a positive light. We're not talking bad about anybody. There's no left or right. There's no center. We're all working on all this together. And we're not going, okay, the government needs to do more. We're going, we as citizens are the government. We are the people. We're all in this together, and it is our responsibility as citizens to provide the government as many opportunities as possible and as much information as possible to do the very best that they can possibly do. And so what I've seen is we do this and we influence politics and we influence all of the information that I feel empowered. Our students feel empowered. We feel like we're part of it. We're in this. And that's really exciting to me. It's not us or them, it is us.
I love it. I think of Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. That quote resonates with me when you say that. Oh, thank you. This is really, really informative. As we get ready to close out, give everyone your contact information, Matt. Tell them how they can go and look at the site and see the wonderful work. So just tell our listeners and viewers how they can make a donation, become a volunteer, or contact.
Yeah, please go to lwhome.org. In the top right-hand corner of our website, you'll see a donation link, and please donate, because we never got that huge grant. We never got that huge donation. I called Selma Hayek. She hasn't called me back, so she could fund the entire process. Yeah, we need donations, and of every size, really. That would be great. And not only money, but we're also interested in working with people. So we're still taking volunteers. And if you want to come to Guatemala and get to know the area, it's a 97% indigenous Cachiquel Mayan town. People are really nice, and they're really interested in working with people, especially educators from all over the world. You can bring a service group for a week, and we provide the transportation, the food, all for a very reasonable price, which is $750. And then you can have a completely packed week of doing development work, working with our students and teachers. And yeah, all of this is available, and we really need everybody's help in every imaginable way, because we want more ideas. We want to work people into this whole process, because that's where we thrive, is more information, more people's advice. We want to do all of this together.
Yeah, better together. I say that a lot. Better. We're always better together. This whole mantra for the podcast for the past year has been culture, togetherness, better together. So you just align right with what I'm saying every day. We just need to be together. And then also you have social media as well.
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can go to lwhomegreen.org and you can see all of the project profiles. So if anybody else out there wants to build with trash, yeah, we have a whole layout on how to do it. Plus, I am perpetually available to answer all of your questions, as we really want people to be able to take advantage of all the research that we've done. And if you'd like to do it yourself and you need help doing it, email me. I'm at matt@lwhome.org, and happy to receive your emails and happy to help however I can.
All right. I love this, Matt. Thank you for the wonderful work. Thank you for being on the podcast, and thank you for just going and seeing something and then doing something and making that vision come to life. I mean, I know life is not easy to be a change maker, but what you're doing is awesome, not only in Guatemala, but something that's international, worldwide, that we need as far as education, as far as saving our earth and using our resources, and then building a community. So just thank you.
Yeah, it's an honor, truly, to be out there in the world with the people, figuring stuff out. I love it, and I want to keep doing it, and I want to get to know everybody that I possibly can on this beautiful earth of ours, and do it all with all of my brothers and sisters.
I love it. Well, thank you again. And all the information will be on the Edufaith Essentials YouTube page and on my Edufaith Consulting page, listeners. And as I close out, I want to say thank you, Matthew, for being a guest. Kudos to you for changing the world, seeing a problem and making it a solution. As we close out today with that wonderful conversation with Matt and learning about sustainability and how you can have a vision and turn a vision into from trash to treasures, I wanted to leave with this quote and this word of wisdom. True leadership is the ability to see the possibility where others see waste and to build something that change lives from it. And that is our word of wisdom for the month of April as we go forth. I want to encourage you to get essential and explore resources that truly support your journey in education, parenthood, and leadership. I've written a variety of books specifically designed for leaders, educators, parents, and Section 504 coordinators. Each one created to inspire action, build capacity, and strengthen impact. All of my books are available on Amazon and the Edufaith Consulting website. Be sure to follow me on Amazon under Dr. Nakia Simmons Cotton to stay updated on new releases. and empowering content created just for you. We have essential tips for special education leaders, essential tips for educators, essential tips for Section 504 coordinators, and essential tips for parents. Now it's time to share. I enjoy connecting with listeners, offering advice, and answering questions, and sharing inspirational stories. I want to use this platform to share and care essential advice. It's your turn to ask for advice or share good news. The letters will remain anonymous and the stories will be featured on the podcast. Sharing is caring. Please email me at edufaithforall@gmail.com. That is EDUFAITH, the number 4ALL@gmail.com. All listeners should adhere to district policies, follow protocols, remain ethical, and adhere to guidelines in the best interest of children. Edufaith Essentials does not assume responsibility or is legally liable for anyone's actions based on the information in this podcast. Before I go, I want to invite you to subscribe to www.edufaithconsulting.com to stay connected and informed. When you subscribe, you'll receive a monthly newsletter packed with fresh resources, leadership tips, and an insightful blog to support your growth as an educator, leader, or parent. www.edufaithconsulting.com. Scroll down, enter your email address, and click subscribe. Don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Edufaith Essentials YouTube page, where you'll find practical videos, interviews, and essential strategies designed to empower your work and purpose. Let's grow together, stay connected, and stay equipped. Get essential. At Edufaith Educational Services, we are committed to equipping families, educators, and leaders with tools, training, and support they need to thrive in today's educational landscape. In addition to our podcast, we provide a wide variety of educational services designed to address the needs of parents, support with disability services, meeting advocacy, service explanations, educators, guidance, coaching, professional development, and leaders, training, professional coaching, leadership coaching, and support with diverse learners and programs. We also specialize in college and accommodation advocacy, including SAT and ACT accommodation support, college and career readiness coaching, and parent education training for schools, organizations, and community groups. Our expertise extends to program development and review, including Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Section 504, and inclusive practice frameworks. We offer customized professional development for schools, districts, nonprofits, and businesses focused on supporting diverse learners and inclusive education. Edufaith is also proud to offer trainings based on our impactful Essential Tips book series, including Essential Tips for Special Education Leaders, Essential Tips for Section 504 coordinators, and Essential Tips for Parents and Educators. These sessions provide practical strategies, compliance guidance, and leadership insight grounded in real work experience and align with current educational policies. Go to www.edufaithconsulting.com to see what Edufaith can do to support you. Don't forget to follow Edufaith on social media to stay connected, inspired, and informed. Join us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, the Edufaith Essentials YouTube page, TikTok, and other social media platforms for daily tips, encouragement, upcoming events, and behind-the-scenes updates. Whether you're a parent, educator, or a leader, our social media platforms offer valuable content, community engagement, and practical strategies to support your journey. Stay in the know and be a part of the movement. Follow Edufaith today. As we close out, I want to thank you for listening to today's episode and thank you for staying connected to the Edufaith Essentials podcast. Don't miss a moment to listen to the Edufaith Essentials podcast on your favorite platforms, including Pandora, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all other podcast platforms, including Buzzsprout. All links to the podcast and information is easily accessible on the Edufaith Essentials YouTube page. Tune in, subscribe, and join us as we inspire and equip you every step of the way. Dr. Nakia here signing off, reminding you to be the light, be the change, love someone. Let's restore faith in education one student at a time, and let's get essential.